5 Live Formula One.
Welcome back to the Chequered Flag podcast. We find ourselves once again in the paddock here at Silverstone to look back at all things qualifying, and what an epic qualifying it was. Max Verstappen pipping Oscar Piastri to pole position, 3 British drivers inside the top 5, and to look back and discuss it all with me is BBC F1's Jenny Gow, and from Viaplay, their lead commentator Nelson Falkenberg. Did I pronounce it right?
You got close enough, I think. Yeah,
Come
absolutely.
on, tell us exactly how we should say it.
Well, if you're Dutch, and we are the only persons who can do this, is Valkenburg. But that doesn't stand. Yes, yeah.
And
try doing that for a whole race.
Oh, more power to you. And it's Gow?
Goh.
As we were. And I'm Harry Benjamin. Now, look, let's get stuck into it then. I mean, Jenny, the weather started with pretty questionable conditions, and it really threw a few spanners in the works to begin with. Quite grey and cloudy, and that left the likes of, the Ferrari, certainly, after being quite high in practice, they looked a little out of sorts in the earlier part of qualifying.
Can I just say, for me, that was one of the best qualifying sessions that I have seen. It was phenomenal. So many drivers being so close. And we didn't know who was going to get pole, and that is such a happy situation for me personally, but for everyone in F1 to not know which way it's going to go. It's a relief. But the question you asked, the wind, the potential of rain, all of the drivers were talking about it. They formed their own little huddles within the media pen to talk about the weather and how it caught them off track, and it just pushed them along in places that they weren't expecting it. It was just so cool.
Yeah.
And I can't use the word cool very often in my life. I'm past that, but
Nonsense.
it was
Cool, awesome. Those are some of the words we've been using, Nelson. I mean, look, we are loving life here at Silverstone because, of course, we would be.
It's an awesome weekend.
But what is it like from the Dutch perspective?
Well, I grew up on racing tracks, including Silverstone, but I was always here in October, November, and this is a pretty different place when it's autumn compared to now. They say this is the heart of motorsport, and it is so, because it's families. It's people coming in, queuing at 7 a.m. to find a spot on the hill and enjoying racing, and after that enjoying the festival. It's just such an awesome race. It's so good.
And then, well, I suppose even better for you guys, Max Verstappen getting pole position. But you look at it on paper and actually, well, you shouldn't really look at it on paper this year and go, oh, it's a Max Verstappen pole position, because this season has been brilliant. But he really dug deep in that final lap, left it right to the end.
He had to. He was nowhere yesterday, and he was really worried he might end up 7th. So what he did, he went for a really low downforce rear wing, massive top speed, and then hang on in the very fast bits. You've got so many fast corners. He said, I just had to hang on. And in that final lap, it came together. I think he was helped by the Vale chicane undoing Piastri's lap. Norris's lap was messy. Hamilton's lap was messy. But crucially, his wasn't. And it was just one of those special laps. And the reaction that he had in the car and outside said it all.
We always hear Max Verstappen not very happy in the early parts of even a practice weekend. He's got feedback. He's not liking the gear shifts, or there's something there. But every time, there's always something to be found right at the end for Max Verstappen.
Super sensitive to everything. And his standards for himself are super high. But that goes for the team as well. I think they worked incredibly hard back at base overnight, and Milton Keynes to get the car in the window. Whether it leaves him exposed for the race is a different matter. But today he got it.
He did get it, Jen, and he'll line up alongside Oscar Piastri. But as Nelson mentioned, there was a little mistake from Piastri right in the final corner. Do you think there was the possibility that actually Piastri, if he'd got that clean lap, could have well been the man on pole?
He was doubtful of whether he had that lap in him, but I think he did, and I think it was there for him. In fact, I think it actually was there for 5 drivers potentially today, and they wouldn't have said that maybe going into the session, but it came to them. And then, as you say, little mistakes crept in, and it wasn't overdriving, it was just clumsy driving at moments that you can't afford to be clumsy. Going into Club, Vale, those sorts of places, if you run even a centimetre wide, this track punishes you, and that's why we love it so much. It's high speed, demanding, and it punishes you if you get it a minuscule wrong.
Well, drivers making mistakes in those final flies, but it was Max Verstappen who managed to keep it all neat and tidy to take pole position ahead of the British Grand Prix. Let's hear what he had to say after qualifying.
Max, that was some lap. How did it feel for you in the car? Because looking on, it looked amazing.
Yeah, it felt quite good. I mean, it's very difficult out there with the wind for everyone actually, but to then of course put the lap together, very happy of course to be on pole, because it was definitely not looking like that yesterday, and even throughout today I think we were close but not close enough, and then luckily in the end we managed to improve, and that felt very good.
You always like doing your talking on the track. There's been so much noise coming into this race specifically. Does that make it all the more sweet to get that pole position in front of the home UK fans?
Well, no, I mean, not really. I mean, it's just, I live my life anyway, you know. I just go home and I have fun, do other stuff, and then I come here and I do my job, you know. So whatever is written or said, I don't really care, and I just want to have fun out there and, do what I have to do.
Thank you.
Jenny Gow asking the questions in the media pen. We're actually just sort of standing slightly to the side of in what was an incredibly busy paddock just a few moments ago. I don't know how anyone gets around. I suddenly found myself face to face a minute ago with Pierre Gasly on a scooter trying to get himself through back to Alpine. We're currently outside Red Bull, so he's got a bit of a scoot to get down all the way there.
Another hero of qualifying, Pierre Gasly in an underpowered Alpine to get into Q3. He wouldn't have expected that, I'm sure.
No, there were some standouts, were there? Let's just see off, though, Oscar Piastri again, though, in second, front row, Jen. And look, championship leader, the gap has come down after Austria. He said in the post-qualifying interviews, I think, with Jolie and Palmer, is it going to be elbows out? I think it will be elbows out. He's ready to race.
It absolutely has to be elbows out. This one is going to really matter because the margins between the cars were so tiny. And going down into that first turn, it's a long lap, it's a long race. They know what's at stake, but they also need to make their claim really quickly. And I asked Oscar Piastri when we were talking, what are you going to be focusing on at the start? Are you going to be looking in front of you at Verstappen? Are you going to be looking at your teammate behind you? And actually, there are a plethora of cars behind him that could take him as well. So I was interested in what his reactions are going to be like off that start line.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's hear what he said in full, speaking to Jenny.
The times are so close. We've seen them get smaller and smaller. But that margin, I mean, are you even surprised at how close it is between the top six?
Yes, I think this weekend in particular, you know, we've had very close competition pretty much everywhere. Maybe Austria is the only one in qualifying where it wasn't so much the case, but I think everywhere else we've had someone nipping at our heels. Just this weekend's a bit different that we've had about 3 teams nipping at our heels, not one. So, it's been a slightly difficult weekend for us, just trying to get pace out of the car. It's always felt nice, but not always been as quick as we'd want. So, we had to do a bit of digging to improve that. But, I mean, here is a track that is very power sensitive, and I think a lot of the cars are very similar in power now. So there's actually not as many corners as what's written down. But, to see it so close is obviously good for the sport. A bit more tense for us in the seat, but it's what everyone wants to see.
Could you just talk me through what you have to process when it comes to the start? Obviously, you're next to Max Verstappen, you've got your teammate Norris behind you, a whole plethora of cars. So how do you focus on moving forward and guarding your rear and all that?
Not easy, definitely not easy. I think Max has got, or the Red Bull has different strengths to us in terms of where they're quick, so that's going to make things a bit difficult. And there's a lot of quick cars. It's not just Max and Lando I need to look out for, there's the cars behind them as well. So we'll wait and see, but try and get a good start, see if we can get into the lead and go from there.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Oscar Piastri then qualifies on the front row in second place, ahead, Nelson, of Lando Norris. Now, we did come into qualifying. I really didn't know, couldn't call who was going to be on pole position, but Lando Norris has got a huge amount of support here. And we've made quite a lot of that mentality side of thing for him this season. Monaco was a big breakthrough for him, but then it went away again. But off the back of Austria, he's riding high with confidence. But do you still think he's out-qualified by Oscar Piastri, but do you still think Lando Norris is almost entering a kind of new phase in this championship now?
I think so. I think Austria proved a lot to him, but he, even after Canada, the way he put his hands up after that race was very mature and I think very, very healthy. I think he's in a way better place than he has been all season. And he has the speed on Piastri. I am sure if everything comes together, Lando is just at half tick quicker right now than Oscar Piastri. It might be different at some circuits, but for the last few weeks I've thought, okay, speed-wise he may have him in qualifying. Just putting it all together has proven difficult, but he's in a good place. And the interesting part is, in front of him is not only Piastri but Verstappen, and Verstappen has nothing to lose going into the first corner. He doesn't rate himself as a championship contender. So he can be a spoiler there. And Norris, in my mind, should hang back a little and then use pace later on in the race and see what happens in that first corner. But definitely, I think Norris is in a great place mentally at the moment.
But interestingly, looking at the stats, which you kind of have to in F1, every time that Norris has won, the next race, Piastri is there and winning. And I just wonder if, that strong win and strong showing in Austria sets us up for another Piastri win here at Silverstone. I mean, it would upset the fans, it would obviously upset things at McLaren potentially, but it just seems to me that that's the pattern.
Well, let's hear what Lando Norris had to say after qualifying third. Speaking to you, Jenny.
Lando Norris, thank you for joining us. P3 was pole there.
It's difficult to give you a straight answer. On a perfect lap, yes, but no one ever does a perfect lap, so no.
Well, you've had a chance of doing a lot of perfect laps recently. It just wasn't here today.
Yeah, just tricky conditions. I don't think anyone can achieve a perfect lap on a day like today. Just very windy, very gusty. One lap to the next, a lot of things can change. So I just don't think we had the pace to the Red Bull today, especially at the end when the grip was at its highest. But we're so happy with third.
When it comes to tomorrow, I mean, the crowd will be cheering you on. We all talk about home advantage. What does that mean for you, and how will you convert that into a win?
That's difficult. I don't know, but it's just good energy. It just makes you excited. It's motivation, and of course, I want to give them something to cheer about. So I think just that last little percent, it helps with. And just always puts a smile on your face, no matter where you are. So, I think there's just opportunity for everyone tomorrow. I think opportunities for us, opportunities for everyone, honestly. So hard to plan ahead for tomorrow just too much, but some of it we just need to wait and see.
Can I ask a sneaky question? Third, sorry. Do you still get nervous when it comes to this race? When you're there on the grid? What does that feel like for you?
I don't know, you just start thinking of a few more things, and your heart beats a bit quicker, and I don't know, you get a bit more giddy. Like, it's not a bad thing.
It's like being in love.
I don't know. Or do I? It's just excitement, really. That's all it is. It's a good thing. I don't know, everyone says nerves are bad, but no, to me they're good.
Lando Norris stayed in third. Just to finish that off, I think it was in Austria, we were speaking to Andrea Stella, Nelson, and one thing that really stood out for me was all weekend in Austria, Oscar Piastri had been a little bit behind Lando Norris, but Andrea was so clear, and he wanted to get this across. Never rule out Piastri, because he builds throughout a weekend. He rides up
so
until
hard.
that final lap. And he was pushing all the way. So it's interesting, you think like Lando maybe has that little bit of pace advantage for the Sunday's race. I think it's going to be an out-and-out fight.
Well, I think Lando, pace-wise in qualifying, is just a little bit quicker. Piastri is better at putting it together a full, complete picture, but he works really hard at it, and he is unflappable. So he won't lose any sleep tonight over that little mistake in Vale. Jenny, I think he'll wake up nice and fresh and think, okay, let's do this. But what a position for McLaren to be in. These guys push each other forward so much, they make each other so much better. There will be a breaking point, but whether or not that's tomorrow, that's part two of the conversation. But for now, it's amazing.
We can't forget that this is McLaren's home race as well. So yes, a lot of people will be wanting Norris to succeed, but actually it's more important for McLaren that they both succeed, that they both bring points home. Yes, they're a country mile ahead of everyone else in the standings. Ferrari, Mercedes, over 200 points behind them. So they've got gap there and margin for error, but they can't personally, publicly make an error when it involves their drivers crashing into each other. It's just not acceptable. We heard the warning last time out in Austria, that was over the line to Piastri. He already admitted that that was over the line. But managing these two, it's going to be the story of the whole year. How do they keep them apart? How do they make sure they're supporting them both at the same time? How do they treat them fairly when it comes to pit stops? All of these things have to be called perfectly.
And that tomorrow could be fundamental, because if there is rain, then who do you call in first is the most important question. Who gets the advantage? And that's why the start is going to be important. Who gets the advantage in a tactical and strategic
Who gets
sense?
that first call to pit?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Especially if it rains.
But also, who's in the right place on track if there is a bit of rain? Because you might well miss the pit lane. Fernando Norris is leading ahead of Piastri, despite being on the track first. But Piastri's still got a chance to go in the pit lane. That's McLaren having to make a call there.
And wasn't it here last year that McLaren had to make the call, and actually it didn't go in Norris's favour, and some would say that they lost that win for Norris in front of his home fans, and maybe a chance of pushing on in the title a bit further towards Max because of what happened here. So you have to think back to that, and they just have to make the right choice at the right time. It all has to come together.
I do believe last year we were very critical on McLaren, and we thought they were immature in being a leading team. I see less of that immaturity this year. The call last week to Piastri immediately, message from the pit wall, this is too much. There is no ambiguity there, and I like that. But it is going to crackle and pop. I can't wait for the Grand Prix tomorrow.
Well, that's what could be happening at the front end. But you know what? It's been so tight all weekend long. Right at the end of that qualifying, George Russell, how do you reflect on his qualifying, Nelson? Because I felt like he really left it till the very end to get the most out of that Mercedes P4.
That car is fickle. That car is difficult to get the tires into a window. Yes, we all say, oh, it's cooler, so the Mercedes should be great. But George struggled all through free practice and qualifying to get those tires right. Kudos to him and his engineer to actually get it right for Q3 in that final lap, and he's right up there. And the race will be a totally different animal when we're looking at that left front, but also the rear tires and the degradation there. So he's in the mix, as are the Ferraris, just so good.
Well, you mentioned the Ferraris. Jen, I'm a bit disappointed with the Ferraris.
So were they.
Hamilton 5th, Leclerc 6th. And I was a bit worried about them in the first part of qualifying because Hamilton was nearly out in Q1. He only had a one-place buffer. Then they came good. However, I think they were in the fight for pole today, or they should have been, and I think that's a bit disappointing, which is a good thing ultimately for them.
So speaking to Charles Leclerc after qualifying, he was very keen to say and point out that there are some weaknesses. Oh, some very happy people, Ferrari caps, who knew? There are some weaknesses within that Ferrari that really don't suit qualifying, and the feeling that he's getting isn't what he needs. So he wouldn't say exactly what it was that's the problem, but he did say and allude to the fact that they have got upgrades that should address that and should bring him and the feeling of that car a little bit further on so that they can compete.
Did you guys hear Charles Leclerc's onboard radio after the final lap? I'm pretty sure I can't swear for the BBC.
You're correct.
Well, we can edit it out.
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't even try. But there were about 20 F words in a row, and they were aimed at himself. He says, I am the one to blame. That's basically when I translated it for a kids show. That's
Nice.
the problem. And that's very interesting. But what's also interesting is with this upgrade since Austria, Lewis is way happier with that car.
Yeah. Feels like he's gotten closer in a way to Charles Leclerc's kind of style of driving and that
I
setup.
think they were always similar in their style of driving.
But I think Lewis
But
has
it
been
was-
going off in one direction to try and find a way forward and has been steadily working his way back when it comes to figuring out, settling into his new surroundings at Ferrari. We're halfway through the season now. This is really the time where you should be feelings like you are settled in a new team.
And if Lewis nailed his final sector like he did the lap before, he would have been on pole.
Yeah.
Another one.
So,
Yeah.
have we got 6 cars in the fight for the podium places tomorrow?
Yep.
The top 6?
Absolutely. And don't forget that Ferrari long run on Friday
Yeah, it was good.
was incredibly impressive from both cars. If it's a clean race, they may be really in the hunt.
I think that's why it's so tasty. That's why everyone's so delighted and looking forward to tomorrow, because come rain or shine, literally, it doesn't matter. Someone is going to have to pick up this baton and run with it, and they are going to be hunted down the whole way. Fernando Alonso predicting absolute carnage ahead of him. He'll start P7, qualifying P9. There are some people moving backwards because of penalties. So I think It really is wide open.
Yeah, I think shout out for Alonso. Pierre Gasly, as you mentioned, Nelson, with a brilliant lap to haul that Alpine. He'll start 8th. Carlos Sainz, despite getting knocked out in Q2, gets bumped up to 9th because Kimi Antonelli is the first of our grid penalties to take. 3 places for Kimi Antonelli. Still starts inside the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda just outside it. Hadjar 12th. Albon 13th. Ocon, Lawson the top 15. Then Bortoletto, Stroll. Ollie Behrman. What a shame for Ollie Behrman. 10 places docked.
Such a shame. The FIA is really allergic to incidents under a red flag. So I understand, but to come back from that disappointment, Jenny, and to still qualify in the top 10 in front of your home crowd, he knew it would hurt if he did well. He did extract the maximum out of that Haas. I think it speaks well for Ollie Behrman.
It was so bittersweet talking to him afterwards because you could see the joy of him being able to qualify within that top and go through to Q3, but the pain of him having to move back. And it's a mistake he made. And it was a clumsy mistake and actually could have been potentially really dangerous. Coming into the pit lane at too higher speed and the brakes just weren't working and he locked up and crashed. That could have been really dangerous. So it doesn't surprise me that he's got 4 penalty points on his licence, take him up to 8. And he's got that...
We've just seen 5 Live Sam Bird, very busy on the phone over there.
very, very busy. Too busy to speak to us.
He's not on the phone. He's actually faking it. He didn't want to be on the podcast.
Yes, so getting the 10-place grid penalty as well. Bittersweet.
Yeah,
really.
with those 4 penalty points for Behrman, he rockets up the penalty point list to 2nd, only behind Max Verstappen now.
But can I ask you both a question?
You may.
Is this track overtakeable on? And can he make his way back up to the points? Because in my predictions, I reckoned 4 British drivers, 4 point-scoring finishes.
This track is incredibly difficult to overtake because of its high-speed nature. But the moment you get a tire offset, there is a possibility. What you need is straight-line speed. The McLarens are down on straight-line speed, as always. But that may give them a tire advantage. So it will not be easy. It wasn't easy last year, and Lewis hung on until the end. But that's why this opening phase and the 2 pit stops or 1 pit stop, whatever you go for, is going to be so important. But dirty air here is king. So we'll see.
Pirelli also going a step softer with the tyres compared to this time last year to try and find that strategic element and improve it slightly. So worth bearing that in mind. Of course, historically last year we had the rain interruption, so that changes things a bit. Hulkenberg and Colapinto, by the way, will be on the final row. Bit of a day, another day to forget for Franco Colapinto on that front. But just going back to Behrman, up until Austria, he was the man who has made the most overtakes on lap 1.
Shows us the Haas is not great on Saturday.
No. So let's see what Behrman can do. Right, okay, that's the grid run through. Now I would like your winner, please. Your prediction of who will win Sunday's British Grand Prix.
I'm going to go wild. I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, the scenes.
Wow.
The scenes.
Yeah. I'm not sure that Red Bull on race pace can cope, especially in low downforce.
Jenny?
I agree. I think they set it up perfectly for Max today, but come the race, that's going to be a harder ask. I'm just going to go on the stats and go Piastri because Norris won last time out.
Okay, well, I'll go Lando Norris to be different. But I think we're going to have a brilliant time in getting there.
Can I just ask one final question?
You may.
Because it sounded like you're about to wrap up.
Yes.
And we haven't even asked Nelson about Max Verstappen and his potential move to Mercedes.
Oh,
and
no,
I
we
think
can do that.
It would be a missed opportunity if we just didn't get a little word on that. Even
you're on
though
the inside,
probably
aren't you?
Producer Paddy
Oh,
is
I
going,
play
wrap
finest.
up.
Seemingly. Well, the deal just got a little bit more expensive today, I guess. Listen, they're in a tricky position. Red Bull's in a tricky position. If he goes, the team implodes. If he stays and the car isn't competitive, the team explodes with Verstappen. I think it's almost a no-win scenario. Can they prove to him that the car will be competitive over a season? I don't believe so. I don't believe that he trusts the technical team at Red Bull to that extent. I think he's seen enough. On the other hand, can they dislodge themselves from a long-term contract? What I am sure about is that Verstappen and the team around him do not want lawsuits, do not want mess. They've won together so much. They want this to be amicable if it happens. But there are a lot of boxes that need to be ticked so far. I just don't think he trusts this team to come up with the winning solution over the long term.
Well,
Do you think he'll go?
My gut feeling says yes, but it will not be easy.
Interesting.
That is a whole story that is happening in the background, or at the foreground, really, of every weekend so far. Look, Nelson, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. If you are in the Nordics and in the Netherlands, you could listen to yourself on Viaplay covering the race.
I can listen to you because you're 3 doors down and you are louder than I am, Harry.
Sorry about that. Crofty's also next door, so that doesn't help matters either, together, combined. Look, if you want to hear the race on 5 Live, you can do so. Lights out from 3 o'clock, or you can watch it on Viaplay if you've got the access to it. What time are you on air for?
Oh, well, from early morning, of course. We do F2, F3. We've got a championship leader in F2 racing.
Yeah.
We're set for the day.
No, it's good. Actually, you would have heard the buzz of I think it's the Formula 4 cars out there at the moment. First time we've had British F4 join the Formula 1 circus.
Behrman's brother.
Thomas Behrman out there. How's he doing? Thomas Behrman, he's fifth for Thomas Behrman at the moment.
Feels right to have F4 on the British bill.
No, it's nice. F1, 2, 3 and 4, making this, once again, another busy British Grand Prix. The paddock is still fairly busy. I think we're off to try and get some dinner. We'll see you for the race on 5 Live. But Max Verstappen, having rained on McLaren's parade, he starts in pole position.